council briefing for the first day of spring, 1st of September. Yeah, and we're all looking out the windows and seeing the rain. Councillors, you have me in the chair this morning. We have an apology from Councillor Deeming, and I'm hoping that other councillors will be joining us as the session goes on. I can see, I'm just going to do a bit of a roll call. So I see Councillor Benny, Councillor Cockerillo, Councillor Connett, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cutforth is still to come. Councillor Deeming is an apology. Councillor Golightly is here. Councillor Hulse, Councillor Innes, Councillor Martin, Councillor Murphy still to come. Councillor Peters is here, and Councillor Reid.
Yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Murphy.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome. I'm sorry, I missed you. I can't see you on my screen. That's how can I change that? Pleased to see you, or not see you. There you are. So the briefing today is on the Waterfront Precinct Plan, and Inju has done the item for the report. I'll take it as read. It was a beautiful long briefing paper, and she's taken control of our screen. Good on you, Inju. I'm going to hand over to Inju and leave it up to you. Welcome. And you're on mute.
Morena koutou. Apologies, I'm just getting everything prepared. Hope you can see me all and you can see the presentation. So today we're talking about the Waterfront Precinct Plan, and the purpose of today's briefing is really to just provide you with an update of what that second round of engagement looked like and the findings that we had, what feedback we received. And also the second point is to seek comfort from the elected members on the suggested changes to the draft plan based on the feedback we received and go over the next steps. So just recapping our plan making process, it kind of kicked off last year on the 25th of August where we began. We came to elected members and we got comfort to start on the Waterfront Precinct Plan. And then we kicked off kind of the issues and opportunities with an interactive workshop with you in November, and that was really to set the strategic direction and get all the issues and opportunities out on the table. We went then in November to the public and our community and stakeholders with that first round of engagement. So we did a lot of the planning work really up front to really get an understanding of what we can create as a shared vision and what they think some of the key issues and opportunities are. That was then presented back to you in February. And then staff went away and received that feedback and started to prepare that draft Waterfront Precinct Plan, which is actually attached to this agenda today. Following the drafting, staff came to you again in April, and we also had another workshop to go through some of the proposed actions, and that feedback was received, and then the draft Waterfront Precinct Plan went back to you on the 18th of May. And then we've actually just undertaken and completed the second round of engagement in June, and that brings us to today. So bringing back all that feedback and what we heard to you again. So this slide kind of really gives a snapshot or a high-level overview of some of the feedback that we received through this engagement period. And the purpose of the second round was to really receive feedback on what the draft plan was and looked like, to ensure that we have set the right direction and that we've captured the right priorities through our actions. The engagement period was open from the 2nd to the 30th of June, and the approach that we took was a community-wide engagement which was undertaken through mainly an online survey and received feedback through social media. And then the second aspect was targeted workshops and discussions with key organisations, agencies and our stakeholders. And then the third was targeted engagement with our hapu through Hui. And overall, we received 75 completed online surveys, about 675 social media comments. We had 6 workshops or group meetings, and 13 one-on-one meetings, and also received some emails. So in total, we received 777 items of feedback to consider. So as I mentioned in our previous slide, so the online survey was one of the main engagement tools that we wanted to receive feedback from the public. And in that survey, there were 12 questions which were multi-choice as well as open questions to really identify a level of support for our key outcomes, themes, areas of focus, priority actions, triggers, and also giving them some options around any other feedback they wanted to provide. And those results are attached in the attachment 1 of the agenda report. We also are using social media, and there were 3 posts made, and we were also able to receive social media feedback through that forum. In one of the images, you can see that one of them actually had a quite hefty comments. There was over 230 comments, so lots of interactions and discussions made through those social media forums as well. So through this second round of engagement, as we were able to already make contact with some of our stakeholders through the first round, as well as continuing conversations, we also met up with some new groups. But staff directly contacted a range of stakeholders to encourage them to provide feedback on the draft Waterfront Precinct Plan. And the key objectives for receiving feedback was firstly to seek alignment and support for the direction of the plan. And then secondly, to identify opportunities to support and or partner in delivering some of those actions. It's also noted that although we reached out to some groups, that the groups on your slide you can see now, those are the groups that provided feedback, whether written or through meetings. And there will be, I've got a slide that kind of highlights some of those issues and opportunities later on that I can talk about. So this is the slide. So following all the feedback that we received through our community and stakeholder engagement, a number of key themes and opportunities were raised, which is kind of presented on the slide. I hope that you can see it all good. During the second round, that kind of highlighted a couple more things that we could review a little bit in more detail. And the first one is the recognition of the marina and some of the economic opportunities and benefits it provides for our waterfront and city. Enabling large-scale events, whether it's small, medium or large, and so the recognition of the Whangarei rally, and that we also have a role in enabling and facilitating some of those events in our waterfront. The next opportunity and issue was to ensure that our infrastructure upgrades are undertaken to support and enable development. The continuing investment in infrastructure and development while ensuring climate change effects and hazards such as flooding are considered. Furthermore, we had a lot of feedback around climate change and its effects, so kind of needing to take that into consideration. Further environmental degradation and the need for investment in improving environmental outcomes. Another point was raised was partnering opportunities, timing, and the resourcing of delivering actions. Another issue that was identified was also to secure bike parking facilities, showers, and toilets amenities in the waterfront. Some of our stakeholders also brought up the continuing of two-way communications when it comes from strategy and into the project delivery aspect, and so the ongoing need to have that two-way communication. Improving water access, all tide water access to our waterways to ensure that they have access, water activities have access. Another opportunity is working alongside tangata whenua as partners. Resourcing, support, and more investment in the arts and creative industries, apologies. And this was brought up quite a bit, was extending our heritage boards and encouraging those cultural narratives and storytelling to be told. And lastly, inclusive design for public gathering spaces, public toilets and buildings. So we did receive a lot of feedback, and that was kind of just a little bit of a snapshot of what some of those things were. I'll just move on to the next slide. So also one of the focuses for the second round of engagement was to make sure that we could also engage with our hapu in a meaningful way and enable them to participate and provide input into the Waterfront Precinct Plan. And so a hui was held at a fair conference centre on 9th of June 2021. And at that hui, I introduced the Waterfront Precinct Plan, and we also established a kaumātua ropu for the Waterfront Precinct Plan. And this was kind of a hapu-led nomination process, and they also decided to put forth 4 kaumātua at that hui to kind of oversee and provide guidance and feedback to the wider hapu to assist in that transfer of information and kōrero, and to ensure that the cultural narratives and aspirations are integrated correctly into the plan. So we've also got some external consultants to help with that aspect of it. And at that first hui, there were over 20 people participating, plus staff. And then that kind of led to the next process, which we had most recently 2 whakaaro sharing workshops, which was held firstly on the 10th of August at Hihiawa Cultural Centre in person, just before lockdown. And at that hui, there were 16 people attending and discussing and workshopping. And then just last week, we had our online hui with around 14 participants in the evening on Tuesday last week, because that was unable to take place in person. And so that kind of work is still ongoing, and we will look to integrate some of those aspirations and ideas by this month, mid-September, hopefully, but just acknowledging that there are challenges at the moment, and that we need to ensure that it's a little bit more flexible and enabling. So this kind of comes to kind of the next stage, which is also considering all the feedback that we have received, the process of refining the draft Waterfront Precinct Plan. And so some of the suggestions or some of the recommendations that were taken on board was to include a 2-page summary to make sure that the document's a little bit more easier to understand, as not everyone will read the full 40 pages. A refinement and of the key outcomes, and maybe a short explanation of what some of those are. There will be some changes to the history, so the first aspect of the stories of what Whangarei is, but also just feedback from Heritage New Zealand. There will only be some minor wording changes to the history. And then there'd be, with regards to some of the feedback we received, we'll add added wording to support the marina and events, and also had a workshop with Northland DHB and Public Health Unit to talk about some of the health benefits in our recreational spaces that it adds to our wellbeing. The next point is talking about improving our visuals and document accessibility. So that's our maps and also the tables and actions, and where possible to provide infographics to explain things, and make sure that the actions are really easy to understand and visually displayed in a way that's understandable and readable. And they will also be consistent with some of our other documents and strategies, such as the placemaking plans. And further refinement to some of our actions to be outcomes focused, and further refinement to some of our actions to include just minor wording changes and additions and refinement to them. But overall, from the second round of engagement, most people, and I think the feedback that we received was overwhelmingly supportive and reflective of that support. There are minor adjustments and refinements that are able to be made. So as we've established some key contacts with our community and stakeholders, the next stage will be for council staff to keep those people up to date, present the report that you've been provided in this attachment, and just make sure that they kind of know what's happening, and that we'll be hopefully trying to get the Waterfront Precinct Plan adopted in October. And that collaboration between internal staff, hapu and stakeholders will continue as projects and actions come to fruition. So there's that ongoing collaboration. The next steps of the Waterfront Precinct Plan are proposed to be to integrate the hapu and hapura Māori cultural narratives and input into the Waterfront Precinct Plan, the further refinement and changes needed to reflect some of the feedback and community feedback, stakeholder feedback that we received. And then the next step is to present the final draft to you at another council briefing prior to adoption. So that's kind of what I've got for today. So I'm happy to take any questions or am happy to answer any clarification questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you for that really clear update on where you've been and what you've been up to. Just if you wouldn't mind not sharing your screen anymore, that way I'll be able to see the councillors to see if there are any, thank you, questions or comments from elected members. And it would be helpful if you either do your hand up like this or use your little hand symbol. So, councillors, any feedback to Injune? Councillor Cocorillo.
Thank you, Worship. Inju, I was just wondering, when it comes to, we've received quite a bit of information saying about different hapus who have authority or rights over the river and over the waterfront. How have you been dealing with this, and how have you been determining who actually has rights?
Thank you. Apologies. Thank you for that question. I think when I first embarked on this project, my first port of call was our advisors within council. And for the first round of engagement, I tried to approach our hapu. So we've also used the forums of Te Hoinga to always give updates on this project, what we're trying to do, and who the right people are to get in touch with. So last year I went to Te Hoinga a couple of times and also spoke to Andre and Apurihama a couple of times. And what we kind of realised was that although for the Waterfront Precinct Plan, my understanding is that the main hapu of interest would be Te Parafo and Ngāti Tongara or Ngāti Kahu o Tongarari. Apologies. And it's sometimes, I guess, depending on resourcing and timing, hard to get everyone at the table. So for the second round of engagement, the approach was requested from hapu to kind of more form that kaumātua rōpū to bring everyone on board, and that process is collaborative, it's inclusive in regards to later on as well. We have 4 kaumātua, and then later at another hui, another kaumātua was added to the rōpū, so it's quite fluid in the sense that they are also providing advice and anybody can attend. And so those interests within the rōpū are people that whakapapa to the area directly. So it's kind of understanding that through the hapu, there's that first connection through whakapapa, and then everybody can participate through those forums, whether it's community or at those hapu hui. Everybody can have a voice, have a say, but the kaumātua provide the guidance as to what collectively can be brought forward. It has, I don't personally think it's I'm not in the position to determine who those people are. I'm trying to work alongside our hapu.
Yeah, thank you for that, Inju. I know it's a difficult area to navigate with. The reason I was asking is, we've received information or letters from people saying that their rights to this area, if history doesn't forsake me, there's been a lot of battles and also ownership of the rivers and the entrance of the harbour. So it's quite a complex situation. So I'm impressed that you're trying to do that. I really am, and I do think it's going to be rather hard to try and label one hapu as being in charge.
I think it's also just a point in time, and for our hapu, it's just, for me, an important process to enable participation. So also not everything has to be shared at one time, and they also, I think, potentially from the hapu side, there might be new actions that also direct them to do further investigation and things like that. So it's just kind of really understanding where are the opportunities that we can work alongside each other. And this process, in my opinion, has been inclusive and not trying to favour, or I don't know what the right word is, but yeah. I also saw Dom on the line. I'm not sure if he wants to comment.
Councillor Peters, I do see you.
So no.
So I've got Councillor Hulse, then Peters, then Innes. Councillor Hulse.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and good presentation. The concern I have is it's a real planning document, and obviously you're a planner, so I feel there needs to be a bit more cohesion between the groups. Like, we should have some really key focus points, what we're actually trying to achieve there. We've got a lot of hapu engagement there, but what do they actually saying and what they actually need? And I go back to when we actually formed the Loop Walkway, and we actually got all those people who had really concerns, like Mandy Fife, who's running their fair restaurant. She is brilliant. Reva, who's running a restaurant down the town basin. We put them in a room, and actually they actually had just about all those good ideas that the Loop had formed on. So I've been reading this quite closely, and you're getting a lot of information, but it's not driving the key changes. It's not one of the biggest things I would have thought down the town basin there would have been that they wanted more restaurants, and I haven't seen that at all in the waterfront area. Yeah, we've already developed it. I know there's two people in town would engage and take up a restaurant tomorrow if we had one, but there's no mention of that whatsoever. There's no mention of any building or any development, and I think that's a real shame, because we started this process probably 8 years ago, and at that stage we wanted apartments all along the lower Den Street there, but we still haven't been able to achieve that. So you need to have that big framework in behind. You need to say, well, this is our overall intent, is to have inner city living, apartments, etc., etc. But to attract the apartments, you've got to have the other facilities such as restaurants, a bit of activities, museums, extensions, etc. And the Whangarei Art Museum's a classic. If we could grow that the way they're going now and put some emphasis and really developing that, it's good. That's going to help draw people down there. So you've got a lot of research there, but it's the actions we're going to have to look at now. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hulse. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Inju. That's really good. And I take cognizance also of Councillor Hulse's input, which I thought was good. Just a question. Do you run workshops with the networkers? I'm just wondering whether you take advantage of some of the natural groupings. I know that they would be okay with a workshop.
Thanks for that question, Councillor Carol Peters. Unfortunately for this particular project, I haven't taken it to that forum. I have been to that forum before, but a new forum that I explored was the multicultural Whangarei. So we did a workshop with them for this project. So we used for this project our advisory groups and other people that provided input. But I think for further projects, we can definitely explore that as an opportunity area to provide community feedback.
It's interesting to find groups that would welcome you to take over one of their sessions, and that's one I know that would. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Peters. Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very good presentation, Andrew. It was very clear and concise, and I just wanted to pick up your comments when you were presenting on issues and opportunities, and you talked about strategy to delivering actions. It really picks up on Councillor Hulse's comments there, and I just wonder, in terms of going forward, alignment with our long-term plan, looking at the projects there, how they align, also potentially with fine tuning for the annual plan next year. And of course, facilitating what Councillor Peters has mentioned in terms of various interest groups. I think having that sharp end of the document, taking it to action, I think will be the next step to provide some certainty and also manage expectations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Innes. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, the one thing that I've noticed with all of the major projects doing the bridge and with the Oruku site and those big things that are happening there, the person that is always at the head of it is Dick Shepherd. And he looks after the pretty much the northern side of that harbour, and I would hope that he's been involved, because that's the way I've always believed Merredin works, is they have selected people at the top and they work through. So hopefully he's involved, because there seems to be an awful lot of people who are laying claim to an awful lot of things, but there are key people in our district that we need to keep informed and have and show respect to. So that's on that. The other issue is I didn't see the Road Transport Association mentioned there, and we've been having a lot of trouble with design of intersections and roads and all sorts where they're poorly designed to suit the big vehicles. And one classic example is when we went on our bus trip down to Ruakaka, we couldn't get the bus out of a side road. And there's commercial properties down there because they hadn't made the corner round enough. It was too sharp. And so if we're going to do anything in there, it's absolutely critical that we have the Transport Association telling us that's the major route through there. And that can never change unless we have an alternate one. And roads are about shifting goods and people and buses and whatever, but we need to make sure that whatever design is going to suit the free movement of all the goods and everything through there. Because in Auckland, where they've St Heliers, the local community stopped the development altogether because they didn't want their village killed. And in Henderson, they're having protests and petitions to have the stuff taken out. And I'm sure that if we, I've got confidence that you'll do this, that we can do a much better job than they did, so we don't affect the traffic and we don't affect the businesses, and we allow the traffic to move through there, or we upgrade an alternate route to ensure that there's no breakage in that transport thing.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. I know Councillor Connick was holding up the Northern Transportation Alliance, but I think Councillor Martin was referring to the Transport Forum. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Transport Forum is a totally different group altogether. The Transport Alliance fix the roads, build the roads and make the roads. The Transport Alliance are the people like Simon, who has to drive a 50-ton truck and trailer there and back it into a shop. And if there's islands, power poles or anything in the road, it just makes it impossible. So they're actually quite different, totally different.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Really bad internet today, been dropping in and out. So I knew this question might have been asked already, if so, I apologise. Excuse me. Obviously, you're going to want the businesses to buy into this. Has the Chamber of Commerce been had a chance to put this? Excuse me, very much. Had a chance to put this in front of its members, and sorry about that. So if you could answer that.
The Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, run past its members.
I have tried to liaise with the Chamber of Commerce and Steve and the team. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get in front of any of their members or anything like that, but that's something that I could try and do in the coming months. Sorry, I think.
Yeah, I'll chase that up from my side as a representative, probably. So
Okay.
I'll chase that up from my side too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cooper. Any other feedback? And I've just got some comments. We've got 58 actions across the various groups. Have I got that correct? I think
Yep.
Total 58. And of those, we've got 24 that are noted as priority actions. And I really appreciate. I think that was based on feedback that you got from the elected members at a briefing. Just so what are the top priorities? I really like the way you've segregated those out from the other actions as well within each of the categories. Is there a sort of the implementation plan aspect of it? Can you talk us through how that, because I also note that in your references to all of the documents that that have been used to get us to this point, your reference list is massive, and it's fabulous actually to see all of the interlocking plans, our strategies, everything that's been taken into account for this particular precinct plan. And so yeah, it's just a matter of sort of next steps, how we develop the action plan from this and turn some of those priority actions into reality.
Thanks for that question. I might just share my slide for a second, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So hopefully you'll be able to see the actions now. So for each, we have got 58 actions for the whole Waterfront Precinct Plan, and that's then 24 actions, as you said, are priorities. So within this action register at the moment, it kind of sets out if there is, on the left side, this should be related to the map to show where it is spatially. This is the action and its number currently with regards to this is what the action should be to strengthen da-da-da-da-da. Then it outlines who the main responsibility lies with. So at the moment, it's currently stating just us as an organisation. However, there also in the past for some of our other previous documents have been specific teams within council tagged. And for this specific project, I've decided to leave it at an agency level, but then have an internal facing one. And then this kind of outlines what the actions are, when the timing is, and if there are additional triggers that could to potentially bring it forward and things like that. So that's kind of at the moment how the action register is displayed, but I think that there are still opportunities for it to be refined, so it can also therefore be monitored a little bit more easier. Yeah. So it kind of just goes through and says what they are. There are also other opportunities to try to identify potentially what are the actions, although some of them are strategic, what are the things that are kind of be done quickly. So we could potentially also bring some of the actions that are going to be implemented or underway in the short term. I'm happy to also do that in kind of like a little snapshot.
Yeah, and I guess that's we'll end up with adopting the whole precinct plan. It's just to get that sense of how the actions will be woven into our work streams and incorporating those priorities. So that's cool. I've got Councillor Collett, then Councillor Cockerillo.
Good morning. Yeah, no, looks very good, and it's one of those things I have to flick through, and just the feel of it looks pretty good too. One question on page 17 of the plan, page 41 of the document, page 43 of the electronic copy. The master plan symbol of the piggy bank. I'd probably just foresee a few people kind of picking at that and saying, "Oh, they're just trying to take our money," as the little symbol for the master plan, as opposed to maybe some plans or something like that, or a book maybe, or something along those lines, different than, ooh, a little bit of money, a little bit of money, a little bit of money, and everybody's going, "Rrr." So it's but otherwise I think the whole thing looks good. I mean, there's a lot of information in there, so you got to be able to digest it, but from what we've already had and gone through, that looks pretty good. So it's thank you.
Thanks for that feedback. Councillor Cockerillo.
Thank you, Your Worship. Inju, on that same document which we've gone through, you mentioned about the rally, but I'm not seeing any icons identifying the Rally of New Zealand or Rally of Whangarei actually on Poe Island, or any indications that that there is any incentive to actually keep that for Whangarei. Do you think that we should include that in there?
Yeah, sure. I think the document that was provided was the document that was authored earlier in the year. So that was the document that was sent out for our engagement package in June. So there has been no changes to that document. So there is also opportunities to identify where some of our large events, whether it's Hikiawa and the Pacifica Festival or the New Zealand Rally, that could be, symbols as well for that kind of event thing. I'm happy to take that feedback on board and look into incorporating that into the final.
Thanks, Inju. Councillors, any other feedback for Inju? Councillor Holmes.
Yes, I want to Inju, I'm still a bit concerned about some of this. This plan is meant to be for the future, long-term future, and I could go back to when we had a subcommittee looking at the management plan of Kingston Park. And at that stage, that committee was really, really bold, but it saved the council a huge amount of money downstream, because we at that time said we're going to grow the Kingston Park out to the railway lines. And so when we went to put the athletic and gymnasium up, we already had it in our plan that we could actually demolish houses, put car parking in, etc., etc. So I don't see that in this plan, because those type of things that when you go out to public consultation, you can refer back to in future years, and it makes it so much easier in future years to do those projects. And there's nothing, I don't see anything wrong to being really bold about the waterfront and actually trying to achieve a lot more than what we've got in the plan currently. I'd like to see that we intend to put apartments in. We said we want to create a waterfront, and I just see in here in one of your slides on page 22 that there's a comment about preserving the mangroves. Well, a couple of years ago, we did the opposite. We said we're going to cut mangroves out, and that's what allowed the views along the loop walkway. And so there's some contradicting things going, what we've just achieved. We created the loop walkway because people like looking across the other side as they walk. And it's just strategic, because some mangroves are left, but some were removed. But be bold in some of the big things we want to achieve down there, because it's a lot easier to put it into one plan, and then we go out to consultation. Then we know we'll have the confidence we can actually go ahead and do it without having to go back through another round of consultation all the time. Just thought I'd pass that on to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hulse. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Murphy.
Morning, everybody. My connectivity is probably really bad, so I don't know if you can hear me okay. I've had my camera off. Yeah, fantastic work, Inju, really good presentation. And I probably know the answer to this already, but we had our joint council climate adaptation meeting on Monday, and Matt DeBoer was going over the latest report, the 6th assessment from the IPCC, and just about how some of those predictions about sea level rise, etc., have been brought forward. So I guess we'll be updating our plan with that information. You're probably in touch with NRC and the team there. As far as, if we're planning, we have to plan 100 years ahead. So I guess we're looking at that. The other thing I just was going to say is, now that I've become a regular runner of the loop, I've been getting changed. The toilets beside the old story time around the corner there. So I get changed in there, and the ladies, and there's a baby changing table, which is quite good because you can put that down and put your clothes and stuff on it, so you don't have to put them on the floor. But I think, any kind of changing facilities or showers to really encourage people to get down there and exercise in their lunch break, break up the day. would be fantastic. So I definitely support that. But yeah, if you could just answer my question on the latest climate change info, that would be good.
Thanks, Councillor Murphy. Sorry, Andrew.
I think when it comes to, I guess, receiving updated information in that climate change space, I think what is really important for this Waterfront Precinct Plan is that it's kind of two parallel processes, where it's also, as things get updated in that space, that also need to be reflected in our other areas, whether it's the district plan or our infrastructure and things like that. So I'm not, to be honest, I wasn't aware of the presentation that you attended yesterday, but I think when it comes to the risks of climate change and all that sort of stuff, and really understanding what they are for our city centre, this plan alludes to getting a climate change impact assessment that will really kind of understand what that looks like for our city centre. And I think that will be a really important step to informing some of those future decisions. But when it comes to what happens in the waterfront, that element of resiliency, I think, is really important, that as and when future improvements take place, projects or building and development, that those considerations are a forefront.
Yeah, thank you. And it might be worth, actually, Matt did give a really good kind of summarised presentation. So Cheryl, it might be a good idea. I'm not too sure if it's on our agenda in the next few months, but to actually have an updated presentation of what it's looking like would probably be really useful for governance. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Councillors, any further feedback to this? One of the outcomes that Inju was looking for was sort of the sense of comfort that we're heading in the right direction, and I'm getting from the feedback that there definitely is comfort and encouragement to keep going. And then can you just describe again the next steps from here? I know that you'll be bringing it back for adoption at some point. Can you just run through that?
I think since the second round of engagement has closed, I have received and compiled that report to present for today. And basically it's working through that feedback alongside the hapu engagement stuff to integrate now into the plan. So basically now it's the refinement of the final draft that will be presented hopefully in early October to elected members, so we can discuss it, and then at the next council meeting in October, get it adopted. So just, I guess, from today, the understanding that we can progress, and you're comfortable with those changes that have been identified, to then come back with the final.
Thanks, Inju. Is everybody clear about the process? So this is our chance, and we have had that the document in our hot little hands. So I see a thumbs up from Councillor Murphy. Thank you. Any
Your
final?
Worship, I just have Trish on the. She's trying to log in. She's having troubles logging into the meeting. Yeah. So if you just wait a couple of seconds, she'll.
Councillor Cutwater is here. So any other feedback from elected members?
Yes, Cheryl, I'm surprised and a bit sad that Inju's had trouble getting in touch with the chamber, because there's a whole community there that would appear not to have had too much opportunity. And I'm not saying it's Inju's fault, right? She's saying she's tried, and I just would like to think that they will have a further opportunity to before things get finalised too much. Is that possible?
So, Inju, it'd be good just if you can reflect back on some of the actions that will come as a result of this. And I noted there were a number of things that the councillors had suggested with groups who may be interested. Will we have that chance before you finalise the document for October?
I think overall we have had quite a robust and I guess thorough engagement periods. There's been 2 rounds, and I'm happy to get in contact as soon as possible with those groups. I personally with the Chamber of Commerce and things like that, I have tried to set up meetings, or rather email them. I'm not sure in the current climate if there would elected members like to extend the engagement period or make some kind of I guess what I'm trying to say is the engagement period that was done in June was quite robust in the sense that it was quite flexible, and I'm happy to receive feedback now. So my general next steps would be to if possible in the coming weeks receive feedback, so then we can make those timelines. But if it is requested from our elected members to kind of receive feedback and then you would like it to be adopted later on, I'm happy to be flexible in that sense.
And my feedback to you, to elected members, is that we have this document as a briefing. We now have the briefing, which is public. We can encourage people to look at the proceedings of this meeting. We can distribute the draft and the work that's been done to date to our own networks. I think we have a duty and a responsibility to do that. If there's an identified group that we believe if you're a conduit to that, use your networks to do that and feed that back. I think it's if there's a specific, I think Andrew's response is saying that if you need the staff to go specifically to a meeting, then she's happy to do that. But I personally also think that we are a very good tool for our staff to be able to ensure that people are taking an active interest in this beyond the consultation process that's already been through twice. So I'm keen for us to collectively use our networks as well. Councillor Cooper, I see your hand still up. Did you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with what you've said, Cheryl, and I would like to say to Indu that I sense and hear the frustration in your reply just then and totally understand it. If people have a 2-week window to get back to you, then we should make sure that happens. I don't want to hold you up and upset your work plan. So as long as we can say to them, look, you get in touch over the next 2 weeks, I reckon that's fair and fine. If they don't, it's up to them. So if that's okay, I'll go with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Councillor Peters?
Yeah, I really hear your frustration, Inju, and Steve is bad at anything other than a phone call. That's the only thing that seems to engage him and gets and I'm sure that Councillor Ken will actually facilitate that. I will follow up with the one I've suggested and see what can be done with the networkers, if that's okay with you. And yeah, I don't want to hold you up either.
I'm sorry, apologies for my reply. It wasn't very concise or on point, but yeah, I generally really believe that these plans need to be collaborative, and the more people that get involved, the better. It is sometimes just unfortunate with the timings. That's why I think it's really important that we try and meet people at the stage that they're at and use our networks to really get that feedback. And I would really appreciate that support if you can reach out to your networks, and within the next 3 weeks, I'm super happy to receive feedback if there are any comments. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's important because I don't know about other groups, but with the Chamber of Commerce, they'll get real shitty if they haven't been involved, even if they've not responded well. I mean, this is my experience anyway. They will get, upset.
Any other feedback for Inju? Thank you, everybody, for being here. And Inju, I think it's really clear that there is quite considerable support for the process that you've followed to date, for the look and feel of the plan. Apart from those minor refinements, I tend to agree with Councillor Conniff about the piggyback. And I'm sure our graphics team will have lots of fun finding a different symbol for the master plan. But yeah, thank you again for your considerable work that you put into this plan. And if there's no further comment, I will close our briefing. Just a reminder, councillors, that we have the another scheduled meeting to start at 10:30. So I will see you all back in our little virtual room in 40 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Cheryl, do we stay in this
No.
thing, or do we do another one?
Councillor Peters, if you look in your calendar, there'll be another link to the next meeting. So we close out of here. You're welcome. Bye for now.